It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we move into 19 years and one day. Welcome to Tuesday. Gary, how are you?
I'm doing all right, but I do have a bit of advice here for the RNC. Let me play this moment here. Here we go. Right.
Gas prices, less food prices, help for our veterans, and God bless our military wherever they are in these United States and abroad. There would be no wars.
Ladies
there wasn't
and gentlemen,
any when President Trump
please
was president.
welcome the next president of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
All right, so you had Lee Greenwood in the background, but I cannot stand that public address announcer.
Well,
when I was watching yesterday, I'm like, shut up!
Well, it sounded like somebody who was less than enthusiastic.
I know.
You know?
I know.
It was like, okay,
I'd rather have one of
the next president.
I'd rather have one of those irritating NBA public address announcers.
Well, I mean, his entrance was pretty majestic.
Oh yeah, it was
based
great.
on what,
Yeah.
especially what happened over the weekend, and he got the applause. You knew that was going to be the case. Why didn't you? You and I are both available. I mean, I'd have to pre-record it. I wasn't going to actually go to Milwaukee.
Those are the things that if I'm a campaign person, well, sorry, she's got to go. You got to have somebody with a little bit of excitement in their voice, and that monotone. I mean, if you were watching any of it yesterday, you could hear her in the background. It's like, oh God, shut up.
Well, she sounds like she's doing the voiceover for one of those true crime series. And then the husband came home to find the bloody scene. It's like, you gotta pump it up a little bit.
I know,
you got the guy in the background, just shouting out what's going on, and and veterans, and then and Lee Greenwood playing, and then it's, please welcome the next president of the United States. Was it old school Roseanne Barr? Please welcome the next president of the United States.
I don't know, but it was it's like, oh, that's so. I know I may be nitpicking, but it's just it's like, come on.
If you're going to put on a show,
well.
Did they not want to wake up the protesters outside or something? I don't know.
Look,
what's going on?
I've covered a lot of political conventions in my life.
Yeah.
To me, look, the purpose, it's a exercise in cheerleading. That's what it is. And by the way, I'm not saying that I'm not insulting, the concept of it. It's about bringing unity to a party, except the DNC might not be that case of bringing unity. And they've done a good job in bringing unity to the party.
Yeah.
And so, but you want to have a public address announcer that seems to have some type of energy in there. Think about it. And I know that in today's 24/7 news cycle, that even though when he was there, it was less than when Donald Trump showed up, it was just about 48 hours. After an assassination attempt on him, and I know that, by the way, all the civility from the Democrats is gone. That didn't even last 48 hours.
No,
which we said it wasn't going to last. But you would expect that after everything, the emotional up and down, what you wanted was at least some of the excitement of what you saw in that rally crowd when Trump raised his hand after he was shot and said, fight, fight, fight. That's the kind of energy that you want. I'm not saying over the top. I really don't want, by the way, one of the NBA public address announcers, because we've talked about that before. That's why I don't go to, well, that's not the only reason, but that's why I stopped years ago going to NBA games, because I couldn't stand the screaming from the and I'm being serious from the Mavericks and the fact that I used to go to the NBA games back in the early 70s a lot. And it's when they had the organ going din 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 din, and the public address announcer would tell you things like, this is where I come from, the old Buffalo Braves, that's two for McAdoo when he made a shot or whatever. Or there's Ernie DiGregorio with a shot from the corner, whatever, and that's fine. Or there's Lou Alcindor. What? Who's Lou Alcindor? Well, that's how long ago I went to NBA games. He was not yet Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Mm-hmm. And then the organ, you could figure it out, and you figured out to say defense on your own. You didn't have to have a screen, a massive 900,000 square foot screen showing you defense, and the announcer screaming, defense, defense. But we did figure that out one day. We did figure that out one day. We said, what in the world's going on? Because the announcer would sit there and tell you it's time to scream. Then he would tell you how to scream. Then he would tell you why to scream, and then, or cheer, whatever it is. And then he would chastise you for not doing it. And that's when I said, no, I'm done. And I'll never forget one time, I was there with a friend of mine. I said, no, and she goes, everybody stand up. I go, no, I'm not standing up. I'm not following orders. I didn't pay the amount of these tickets to pay to follow the orders of a public address announcer. But I figured out why it is. I figured out why it is because NBA teams are located in liberal cities, and liberals believe that that the average person is an idiot, and you have to explain to them everything.
Yeah, it's because once they know they can command you to do something, it's only a few seconds before they say, everybody do the chicken dance. And I'm not doing that.
But it's, could show a little bit of excitement, all right? Just a little bit of excitement?
Yeah.
Come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the next president of the United States.
Well, it's an exciting day. The Republicans now, because JD Vance, as somebody pointed out, when was the last person that had a beard?
No, I think you should go full on, the latest beard trend that kind of ended recently.
Well,
the long beard thing.
Yeah, but you've
Duck
probably
Dynasty kind of beard.
You've locked in a rare demographic, the Appalachia Ivy League hipster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's...
You forgot author.
Author
hipster.
Screenwriter in a way.
Yeah.
Because they did the movie, but oh man, I'm telling you, what a day it was yesterday. I think I woke up very early yesterday. I didn't get a lot. I just didn't. I woke up and it was like by 9:15, I texted you and said, "My God, please, news cycle, slow down a little bit." Morning Joe off the air, and the documents case dismissed. I said, it's not even 9:15 yet. I wrote that to you.
I know. I didn't respond till the afternoon. You know why? Because I learned it from you and your text message. I slept all morning. I slept from like 5:30 a.m. until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I wake up to your text message, and I'm like, what? What's he talking about? What's he mumbling about? What is this? What happened? And, and the whole Morning Joe thing. There's a mystery for you. What's going on there? You leave Joy Reid on the air and you take Morning Joe off. Joy Reid was on the floor. She was there in Milwaukee. Still is, as far as I know. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know what happened where they decided to, and what did they do? It was basically continuing coverage. It's one of the, and you and I talked about it, I think, off the air, that it's going to be, this is when now all the weekday morning shows now are coming back to work for the first time after the assassination attempt. So it's a massive, massive news cycle.
Yeah, we know that. So we've been in the media long enough. That That's exactly what you don't do. You don't take your anchor morning show off the air.
Well, because
36 hours after an assassination attempt, when everybody else is carrying their regular shows. That was a cover. They were afraid of what they would say on the air.
Well, here's what I think may have happened. Management/lawyers call them and say, you need to be very careful about what you're going to say this morning. And they pushed back and said, well, no, we're not going to stifle our opinions about the guy. Okay, you're off the air. I think that theory is just as sound as anything else. Because there's no doubt that there was some kind of memo in every newsroom on that level that said, listen, you're going to have to be careful. Choose your words carefully. And if you get pushback on that, then management's going to look at that going, all right, that's not what we want on the air right now. Now, I know it's MSNBC, and most of you are laughing at my humor that I just interjected into the show. But it's the only explanation I can come up with. I mean, there may be a different one, and it may be very different in reality. I have no idea. Maybe Mika and Joe are fighting. I don't know. I'll throw that one out there for the tabloids. But it reeks of management saying, hey, tone it down this morning. Well, we're not going to tone it down. We don't like Trump. But why would you put Joy Reid on the air? Again, on the floor in Milwaukee, if that's the case. Were you going to tell her she couldn't do that?
Well, no, because she'd probably get pushback if she interviewed someone like, was it Trump Jr. with the MSNBC guy who was talking. Are you going to separate at the? You going to separate at the border? He goes, well, Obama did it. No, he didn't. Well, yeah, Obama did do it.
Yeah.
You know, so
right.
he lied, but he got pushback. And he goes, no, just get out of here. He just said, just get out of here.
Right.
I'm going to deal with you.
Right. And
but the thing is, go ahead, because I was going to expand more of the general day. I was just
saying that I don't, there is no, and who was it over at, it was National Review, Jeffrey Blair over at National Review, who basically is asking the question, because I love the point that he made. Hold on a second.
I've got that here.
Where he basically makes the case that, okay, could it possibly be because the attempt came after years of Morning Joe's various guests spending their waking hours depicting the same man as an incubatory proto-Hitler. Well, right. I love the phrasing. Here's the funny. Here's the funny thing. Honestly, I doubt it. Read that again carefully. I do not think that was the reason at all, because I don't think shame motivated MSNBC at all. So it wasn't out of shame, he's saying it probably wasn't out of the years and years and years of, he's Hitler. So that then, and he said, but man, there must be some evidence somewhere of these, half-drunken text messages going back and forth and or emails or whatever. But the only thing that would explain it is if management or producer, their executive producer, I don't know, their news director at NBC, called them and said, okay, look, here, just need to be careful about, well, I'm not going to curtail my anger over Trump and blah, 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 blah. And, okay, you're off the air. You're not going to go on Monday. But he's got to go on sometime. He's going on Tuesday, is he not? As far as we know.
It was only one day, and look, the president gave the go ahead last night when he was talking to Lester Holt, and so are you going to tone down the rhetoric? And I'm paraphrasing here, but his answer was basically, well, he's a threat to democracy, so I have to tell you that he's a threat to democracy.
Yeah, we said it. They're not going to slow down a bit.
Yeah,
these whole things, the pushback when they all started to, well, we pray for a full and speedy recovery. You've been calling him Hitler. You actually pray for Hitler to have a full recovery? Either you were lying about calling him Hitler,
right,
or you're lying about praying for him. It's one or the other.
I think it's lying that they were praying for him.
I think so, too. From the party that at their convention several years ago booed God. So I'm doubting any of them were praying for him.
I did get one message saying, well, you guys at times have been, referred to them as Hitler. We never have done that, ever. What we have done is we have said, by the Democrat standard, we've always used that, by the Democrat standard of what they may claim about someone else and how they define Hitler. Well, by their definition, they're Hitler.
Well,
and that's how
the ones who are pro-Hamas and have proudly put on display their anti-Semitism are calling the other side Hitler.
Right, and that's what that's specifically probably the strongest argument that we have made to show their absolute lunacy.
Right, and it's by their standard.
Right.
So taking the utter nonsense, and by the way, you don't need further proof than Bill Maher. Well, we called the other guys Hitler, but Trump really is Hitler. And now he's coming around. Now he's not pro-Trump, but he stopped calling him Hitler. This is the problem that they have. They step in it every time. You can't get away with it. We said, I forget what the incident was. It was years ago. It was somewhere around 2012. They forget the internet exists. And they forget the internet exists today, and now more than ever, people can fact-check things. They get the truth on their phones in their hands when they want it, and the left forgets that.
We got a great show, 866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. On a hot summer day, the last thing you want to feel is a blast of warm air when you turn on your air conditioning. A malfunctioning AC system will leave you uncomfortably shifting in your seat. Not to mention, it can affect the safety and performance of your entire vehicle and your productivity. When issues with your AC system begin to occur internally, your truck will give you some warning signs. Those include a noisy compressor and a lack of water dripping from the cab drain tube while your AC is running. If you experience either of these warning signs, you should have your AC system inspected by a professional technician immediately. Listen to your truck and invest the time now to avoid spending more time in the shop later on.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. I do believe also that, and it may be after the convention, or it may start as early as tomorrow. You saw that Bob Costas came out and said that Biden needs to go. But I think that call is going to have a resurgence because I believe that when when the convention comes, and by the way, there's a lot of understand that when you have a convention like this, people really don't pay attention until maybe a little bit on Wednesday, but mostly Thursday is what they pay attention to. I know there's a lot of some criticism about some of the people that spoke yesterday, but I think that one of the things that they're doing on the Monday of this convention is showing that people that were not Trump supporters before, including JD Vance, not his vice presidential running mate, were not fans of Trump and now are becoming fans of Trump and the Republican Party. And so whether it was the actress, I can't think of her name, Amber. I forgot. I forgot. I can't think of her name right now.
Yeah.
People are changing, and that's what what they're trying to promote. We'll get to that coming up here.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Turnout Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Before we analyze day one of the RNC and also talk about JD Vance or the court cases, some of the new information coming out about the assassination attempt here, pretty mind-boggling, is it not?
Yeah, it's mind-boggling as to what they knew, where the guy was. Our colleague Dan Bongino sharing some information, and if that information is accurate and true, it's going to require that a number of people get fired all the way to the top. This was a massive, massive failure, not just on the fundamental level, but on every single level along the way. And now video coming out of the shooter actually setting up on the roof that someone, a civilian, shot. And it wasn't just seconds before he fired those bullets. It was, according to the poster, it was over 20 minutes before. If all this is accurate and true, then people need to be gone from the Secret Service, and others need to never, ever have presidential detail, ever.
I mean, you look at some of the CBS reporting. Olivia Rinaldi, one of the snipers inside, saw Crooks outside looking up at the roof, observing the building, and then disappear, according to local law enforcement. Then Crooks came back, sat down, and was looking at his phone. And at one point, one of the snipers took a picture of him. Then Crooks took out a rangefinder, and the sniper radioed to the command post. Crooks disappeared again and then came back a third time with the backpack. The snipers called in with information that he had a backpack and said he was walking towards the back of the building.
And at one point, they lost track of where he was.
Yeah,
for a while. They couldn't find him. He was hiding in a building. I don't know how in the world something like that happens.
And as soon as, and I don't know who in the Secret Service said it, there's a representative. Well, that was under the authority of the local law enforcement. Nothing is on. The local law enforcement works in cooperation with you.
Yeah.
They don't set the parameters of where the security blanket is going to be. That's up to the Secret Service. And if the new Secret Service doesn't do that, somebody gets fired who has been following that particular protocol.
Yep. And as Dan Bongino said, well, mistakes are made. He said, we're the Secret Service. We don't get to make mistakes.
No.
And you don't.
No, you don't get to. No, not mistake. 130 yards away.
Yeah,
you're talking about. I don't even. It is so disturbing that everything in this administration is blanked up.
It's so bad, and incompetence runs throughout.
Yep.
It starts at the top with him, with Biden, and it runs throughout.
And the other thing is, we didn't get into this, but the whole DEI, DEI stuff, and women as close Secret Service agents to the president. Understand, there's two different physical classifications for Secret Service agents.
Mm-hmm.
There can't be.
Right. There can't be.
No,
in
the
fact,
standards have to be the same across the board.
If it applies to a male, it applies to a female. Right. And one of the things is they were just getting former President Trump into the vehicle, and everybody's seen this video. The one agent, she's struggling to holster her firearm, and the other one had her glasses either knocked off or something, and she's worried about putting her glasses back on. It's in those moments to shred every hair and pick apart every single thing is one thing. But one thing that I noticed that stood out to me, I didn't see people commenting on, was their height.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it's a man or a woman. President Trump is 6'3". Because you have to assume also that the threat could be not just somebody with a weapon, but a crowd of people that might rush. You're going to have to be big enough where each of you might have to fend off a number of individuals, and your height should be the proper height. Forget even how tall the president is. It gives you a vantage that others may not have. Full stop. And if you don't have the strength, I don't care about the standard. Should be one standard.
Yep.
You have the strength, you have the physical makeup to do it, or you don't get that assignment. No way around that. We're not trying to get people certificates to put on their wall. You're keeping presidents and former presidents alive. That's your only purpose in life when you have that detail. And it's maddening the more we learn. And you see everything going on and everybody having their own theories. Anybody who says, well, this theory and that theory, we shouldn't. With this size of an F up, I don't know how many theories might fall before they find out what the truth is, because you tell me what the... Starting to sound like the former governor of Minnesota. You tell me what happened. You tell me.
Well,
If you've got a theory, the fact of the matter is if we're doing DEI hires, and we already know, the head of the U.S. Secret Service, her goal, well, we're going to hire a female, we're going to hire blah, 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 blah. You hire those who are physically and mentally fit for that job, full stop. You have one job, and it's not to fill a quota.
As Christopher Rufo wrote in City Journal, to say it plainly, there is no need for women in the president's security detail. The Secret Service is an elite institution that can funnel down a large number of candidates to select the few who will protect the president. The best candidates, the strongest and fastest, will be men. That's just reality.
Yep.
The reality that the Secret Service is determined to circumvent. The agency itself has published its fitness standards in two parts, one for men and a separate, less rigorous one for women.
No.
The
Can't have
biological facts should be obvious. Every nightclub owner knows that physicality matters. A bouncer who is 6'5", 200 pounds will provide better security than a smaller woman or a smaller man, as you have said.
Yep.
Part of its signal, strength, size, and strength act as a deterrent, and part of it is substance. When a fight breaks out, the nightclub owner learns quickly who is capable of maintaining order and who is not. If he makes the wrong hiring decision, he loses money. And it is, in its own way, an honest business. Why has the Secret Service lost sight of such a basic principle? Because large bureaucracies are insulated from consequences. Directors of large corporations, and especially government agencies, can afford to engage in vanity projects and pay the DEI tax. Wow. Someone like Kimberly Cheadle, head of the Secret Service, who did a stint at PepsiCo before accepting the directorship of the Secret Service, understands how to pursue success in the current environment, tell the story of diversity to advance in a career, degrade the quality of the personnel by hiring ideologically, and hope that the remaining capable men who still represent the core of the service can make up the difference.
Right.
To be clear, I'm not arguing that DEI caused the lapse in security at the rally in Butler. It is too early to know one way or another, but the near-miss assassination reminds us of the stakes. Split-second reactions, physical courage, and calm under pressure are all essential into the work of protecting the president. If any of those slip, even by an inch, the result is death. What we saw on Saturday was luck, not competence.
There's no other way to sum it up.
No, there isn't.
If the former president had not turned and tilted his head in that split second, then everything, the entire conversation would be much different. I can't imagine. I thank God he did that.
And as he writes here, the problem with DEI is it dictates decisions based not on performance or on the old virtues such as honor, but the demographics and ideology. Failure is easily dismissed and blame easily shifted. Another problem, DEI is hard to roll back. Will the Secret Service jettison its goal of increasing the number of female recruits? Will it reassign the women on the president's security detail? Will the agency ditch the separate fitness standards and require that women prove as capable as men? No. There might be symbolic resignations or a slight tightening of standards, but the DEI regime in force for a half century cannot be abandoned without a public fight. This is where Trump could make the difference if he is elected president again. He has a chance to rescind affirmative action, reject critical race and gender ideologies, and abolish all DEI programs in federal government. This would not only improve the performance of the Secret Service, but the functioning of government as a whole. Neither a president's life nor a country's should be gambled on DEI.
It's unreal. It is unreal.
Really is.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
You have one goal. You have one mission. You're protecting a sitting president or a former president, and I don't care who that president is, their affiliation with whatever party. I don't care. It is critical. And the standard must be one, and it must be the highest of standards. Only the highest qualified, most physically and mentally capable individuals should be in those positions, period.
When you had Robert Kennedy Jr. come out and you saw, okay, he's a major independent candidate.
Right.
And if you look at past elections, he's a major independent candidate.
Right.
And he is a Kennedy. We said he should receive Secret Service protection.
Right.
He only got it yesterday, hours after Trump said he should get it.
Right.
And then the Biden administration finally capitulated.
And how long has that been? How long ago was it that they denied his request? I forget, but it's been going on for a long time, and it's just
a year.
It's probably right around there, maybe
9
even
months
longer.
to a year.
Yeah, it was somewhere around there, and it's like, what in the world? I may not vote for the guy. The same protection standard for me applies to Biden. It applies to Trump. It applies to all former presidents and sitting presidents and major candidates. That's simple, and there's no way around that. And you have a standard, the same standard for each of them.
You know what bothers me about this? It seems to be the same lack of communication as to the absolute without question goal and focus on security, just like you saw in Afghanistan when they identified who the bomber was.
Right.
And they couldn't do anything about it.
Right.
That's what's been sitting in my mind.
Benghazi,
And
they were calling in the final moments, before more Americans died, they were calling, please, just buzz in some jets. The jets don't even have to do anything. Bring in some fighter jets to tell the enemy we mean serious business here.
I'm using Afghanistan because the personnel were there to stop the threat, and they couldn't get, if you've seen some of the testimony from some of those soldiers on the wall, they could not get any kind of decision from the leadership in the military. Nobody knew what to do, and they saw the bomber. They identified who the bomber was, and he blew himself up and killed 13 American
and
soldiers.
I think it applies to both. It applies to Benghazi, too, because they were also trying to get approval as they sat on a tarmac, whether they were going to be in uniform.
Yeah, I agree with that part. I was just saying that both were you had the force to stop it right at that moment.
Yes,
but the decision making overall, I would agree with you on all three.
Yeah, and this is the insanity that happens when you have somebody who's not capable of being commander in chief.
866-98 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The man who once called Donald Trump America's Hitler, speaking of Hitler, is now his vice presidential running mate. We'll get into the evolution of JD Vance and some political analysis of him being the vice presidential pick. And by the way, all day Monday yesterday, and even picking Vance, is the Trump campaign saying, look, there are people that looked at Donald Trump early on and realized they were wrong. Mm-hmm. You can vote for me. I think that's the message that was sent yesterday from the first day. We'll get to that coming up.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I don't even know where now what platform it was sent to me on, but one of our great listeners said, so, you guys have been on the air together for 19 years, and that was yesterday, by the way. It was 19 years together. So what was the worst fight you ever had? How long did the fight have?
I saw that.
Do you guys have?
I think I saw that a little while ago.
Do you guys have fights, and how long do they last when you have a fight?
19 years. That's how the first one has lasted. Just give the guy something to go on. The first one has lasted 19 years and 1 day. It started on day one.
We've never. I don't think we've ever had a fight.
No, we haven't.
We've never.
And also define fight. No, I'm just joking. Just feeding the internet here.
I don't think that, because at times we'll disagree on something on the air, and we might get snippy with each other, or I may get snippy.
No, we don't.
But but I don't think we've ever had a fight.
No.
On anything.
No.
Anything. I don't remember a fight where we sat there and, all right, I can't believe that's never really happened, has it?
No.
And then there was we thank the gentleman for listening, because we had said yesterday that when you do a show, and we're talking about over the top rhetoric, and about when, and I think it was in specific to I know what it was Jonathan Turley saying that he doesn't think that these people who use this violent rhetoric actually want somebody to be hurt. And I said, I disagree with him. I think some do. Yeah. Because otherwise you don't say it.
Right.
And I said, we've done, oh, by the way, I figured it out yesterday.
Oh.
We've done almost 4,600 shows together, you and I.
Wow.
23,000 hours.
Wow.
And we have never used any violent rhetoric. And the reason is we don't believe in it, so we don't use it.
And minus commercials, it was only 25 hours. But it's still a long time.
And I said that, we come on the show, we know what the issues are, we know what our opinions are, and we study the issues, but we don't have a script in front of us.
Right.
And so...
And we don't communicate. We'll send a text to each other jokingly throughout the day, but it's rare that we communicate, and we certainly don't communicate. Even in our pre-show meeting, we don't sit and go, okay, hour one, let's break down. We don't do that.
And I said, so there's a lot of, it's ad-libbing because we don't have a script. Some guy writes, oh, okay, thanks for telling me that, because then I know that you're really just entertainment. Mm-hmm. As if because we don't have a script that in his mind, we have no credibility.
Right.
And I didn't even answer him because I just said, I'm not going to answer him because he's listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
If he's listening, I'm not going to stop him from listening.
Well, no,
so.
and it's quite the opposite, in fact, because if you can't speak on the issues and on what's happening in the world today from a point of conviction and from the heart, then you shouldn't be doing what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And if I understand that some people need a script, I understand that that's just kind of how they work. We've seen it in television news for a long time. Commentary. I think Neil Cavuto at the end of his shows, he's still doing that. Where he just reads some points that he put together about the issues of the day, and that's fine. You and I both grew up watching that at the end of an evening newscast. There would be a commentary, and they would be reading a script. Keith Olbermann, people like that, they'll script out everything. It's because of the environment they worked in. They're working in television. It's all scripted. They may have written it. Tucker Carlson, at times on Fox News, I don't know how much he does it today on his new stuff, but these are people that when you work in television, they're going to require you to write a script.
Mm-hmm.
But for what we do, for me, I can't do the scripted thing. I could never do the scripted thing because I don't believe in it. And that's, I think, the most important thing for me is to be able to speak from the heart, speak of conviction, straight out. And I think it's because I want the audience to get, and you and I have talked about this, save everything for the show, save it for on air, because we want them to get the initial reaction of each other and our response and that passion that comes with that. And it doesn't mean it's not thoughtful. It has to be thoughtful too, and there's the balance. So you have to be thoughtful in your approach. Yeah, we are entertainment. But in order to issue opinion and analysis, you also have to be very, I think, aware and thoughtful on the fly. And I think that's what we do. I think it's what we do best.
and my point was when you're doing ad lib 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, which means you don't have a script.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've never used any type of violent rhetoric because we don't believe in doing it. If you use violent rhetoric and you use it on a consistent basis, I believe, not all, but I believe that a significant portion of those people who do that actually wish that violence to happen. Sorry, but you're otherwise, what you're saying is words don't matter and words matter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
How you explain something, how you justify what you believe is what you believe.
Yeah.
And if you're using violent rhetoric, the question would be, why are you using that violent rhetoric? What is the purpose of doing that?
Right. Yeah.
I can't remember. Oh, gosh, it was in the 90s. I remember seeing on C-SPAN one time, he was a liberal Texas politician. And I bring this up and I always forget the guy's name. But I'll never forget, it was in the 90s. So I was in talk radio for a few years. I probably was in talk radio 7-8 years. And I remember he would read a script. He had a huge script that he read, and I couldn't believe it. And it's almost like, remember when Air America started? Remember you and I watched the documentary?
Yeah.
And they did practice shows.
Yeah.
Which was like, we need to do 3 weeks of practice shows to figure out what we're going to do. And anybody who's in talk radio, their jaw was dropped going, really?
Yeah.
A practice show?
Yeah.
It was,
yeah.
And they did practice show after practice show. We need to make sure you know what you're doing. It's like, okay, this isn't going to work out because you need people that have been in radio.
Right. Well, and the thing is that you also need to, because I said this one time about Al Franken. I don't know if it still applies today, but Al Franken being such a big part of Air America. If Al Franken had gone down the road that Jon Stewart did, then that may have been a greater success. And I think the problem with Al Franken is he believed he had to be too serious on the air with Air America. You can interject the humor, and he didn't do that, which is what he was known for up to that point. Former SNL writer, former player on SNL, and I think he could have, if he had implemented the humor into his analysis or issuing of opinions, I think he could have been a greater success in that regard. I don't know if it would have carried Air America altogether, but, you know, he got too serious about it. And then, of course, years later, kind of everything came to an end.
I interviewed him whenever the Republicans have a convention. I just remember being at the 2000, July of 2000. I just started at our flagship station, WBAP. Just started. And next thing I know, I'm on a plane to go to the Republican convention in 2000.
Right.
And I just, I interviewed Al Franken. He was great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because he was doing the conservative talk radio tour.
Mm.
So this is before he became a senator and everything else. And I'll never forget. It was so funny because I don't even know if Sean Hannity would remember it, but he was like following me around. Al Franken was, "Hey, Gary, what's up? What's going on? Hey, what's going on?" Because we were all in the ABC. ABC had huge tents, and like outside in the parking lot was where the media was. And remember, there would be a huge ABC section, and so ABC TV, because we were part of ABC Disney at that point, ABC Radio, so we were part of Disney. So ABC TV and ABC Radio were together, and there were just some great lunchtime discussions, as I've talked about before.
Right.
I mean, it was just, and it got to be brutal at points. I mean, it was just brutal. The conservative radio talk show hosts that worked for ABC Radio going after the liberal ABC TV anchors and stuff. I'll never forget, like, Sean Hannity was like, "What? Al Franken's following you around, isn't he?" It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, because he was very friendly. So it was like a year later, I think it was when Air America started? I can't remember, but it was a couple of years later when Air America was started, and I wanted to get him on the air. I was doing my local show, and he wouldn't come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so maybe he heard me telling the story of him following me around. That was
Didn't want to
creepy.
look like a complete stalker.
That was creepy.
If I go on, I'm just going to look like a stalker.
Gary, why does Al Franken like you? I
Yeah.
go, I don't know. But that was my classic. What happened there endeared me to the conservative audience at WBAP, and that's when Paul Begala came on.
Right.
And Paul Begala, former Clinton advisor and everything else, well-known Democrat. Didn't he last week say that? Was it last week he said that? I think he said that Biden needs to drop out too last week.
I think he was the one that said it. Yeah.
But he had no idea how the school lunch program worked. I'll never
Right.
forget.
Right.
You don't even know. I said, you're commenting on it? You don't even know how it works.
Right.
It was a great interview.
Yeah.
But I always look back to that. And the one thing I remember, and I don't know what night it was. And when all the primetime stuff happened, because I was doing my show in the afternoon, by the time all the primetime stuff started, I was back at the hotel room watching on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd been there since early in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So but I will never forget when it was. I can't remember what day it was. God is my witness, since we're talking Morning Joe. Joe Scarborough, I come in there, and it's like, "Hi, I'm Joe Scarborough, and this is my band." And he had his band, and his band played. So when anybody looks, for example, at today at the RNC, now we did complain about the public address announcer she needs to get a little bit excited, have some passion in her voice, but
ladies and gentlemen,
But
the next president of the United States.
I think yesterday what they attempted to accomplish, they accomplished. But I also believe that Thursday is important. The rest of the convention, from covering so many as I have, the inside the Beltway pay attention. We pay attention. We'll tell you what they were attempting to accomplish today, but most people aren't paying attention. It's interesting that two people that I know, two women, yesterday, and everybody were you getting it? Who's he going to pick? Who's he going to pick? I go, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
And then it got interesting when he said it's somebody that nobody's been talking about. Well, people were talking about JD Vance, so I don't know what Trump was saying, but when Trump said that, it was like, oh, okay. And then I go, well, who do you think if it's not going to be that, if it's not going to be anybody that's been talked about? And I go, then Sarah Huckabee Sanders is the only person I could think of because everybody else was being talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But when he picked JD Vance, two women that I know that are into conservative politics had no idea who JD Vance was.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, a positive to introduce him. He's young, has the beard, and somebody pointed out nobody has a beard, but the image of him with Trump, I believe, will be a good image matters. Will be good, and if there's a debate against Kamala Harris, watch out, Harris.
Yeah, I would not want to be her on a debate stage against JD Vance.
But it was interesting, the two people that were asking me about it, I don't know him. And then one realized, oh, I actually follow JD Vance and still didn't know who he was.
Wow. Okay.
And well, that's the mistake we make. One of the mistakes we make is we assume that everyone is paying as much attention as we are, or I'll say our listeners. Because if you listen...
right. Way too many people don't care.
Yeah. But listeners of talk radio are the ones that are paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
So you may know, but there's a ton of people you have to understand that are completely oblivious to everything that's going on.
Yep, they don't care. And hopefully they'll learn to care. Hopefully they'll change that.
But we'll get to the first day of the RNC. We'll look at... by the way, you saw Jack Smith appealed, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's over. It's not going to happen.
You're not going to get any appeal done before the election. And if things keep going this way, Trump will be president in January of next year. It's not going anywhere.
And the Supreme Court's going to agree with the
judge.
With Cannon.
Yeah. Yep.
Because that was brought up immediately. It's like, well, we know we're sitting there saying, well, yeah, but it really doesn't matter if he was appointed in this way. Well, yeah, it does matter.
Actually, it does. Yeah.
It actually does matter.
Yep.
Yeah. 866-90-RED-I.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Uncompensated detention at docks frustrates drivers of all stripes. If you're an owner-operator, you have at least some control over the matter. Make the subject a standard part of your rate and/or contract negotiations on the front end. You can use your own numbers to calculate an hourly rate to compensate for lost income opportunity, as well as fixed costs, which don't stop when the truck stops. Those two elements of a fair detention rate were deemed appropriate by most of Overdrive's audience almost a decade ago. We've used income, fixed costs, and miles average of our owner-operator business services from ATBS's clients to compute an average $64 an hour detention rate then. And 10 years later, the figure is $83 an hour. Use your own numbers to calculate your rate. A simple conversation with any broker or shipper or your carrier if you're leased about what you're putting in the rate might yield results you don't expect. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, I figured out who it was. It was former Texas politician Jim Hightower.
Okay.
Who did a radio talk show. I love it. They call him a populist. He's a liberal. It's like, I love the populist. Then again, a lot of populism is liberalism. And that gets us into our next discussion about populism in the Republican Party, Trump and Vance and everything else coming up here following the bottom of the hour. But, Hightower used to read a script on his show. I think it was his weekend. He did a weekend show, then he did a regular show, I think, during the week for a while. I know he worked for ABC for a while, but I just remember seeing on C-SPAN one time saying, wow, he's reading a script. And it sounded like he was reading a script.
The show that never stops. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you so much for being here. All right, JD Vance is the pick senator from Ohio. And it was interesting yesterday because we had gone through, people really didn't know till the end. I mean, there was the talk about all the security outside of J.D. Vance's home over the weekend in Ohio, but the names out there still were Burgum, Marco Rubio, even though there was still the problem of both having residency in Florida, and Glenn Youngkin. I will say this: then the names. It was funny because did you sense on social media some Republicans that were like, wait a minute, Trump's going to give a speech on unity? Well, they're not going to want unity on the other side. Why are we doing it? Now, Nikki Haley's coming. Now the rumor is Nikki Haley's going to be his vice presidential running mate. And then when I saw, wait a minute, unity, well, where's Trump going with this? Trump is apparently meeting with Robert Kennedy Jr. People are saying that he might be the vice presidential candidate. I'm like, oh, my God. It was lunacy yesterday on social media. Neither of those things happened. I didn't expect either of them to happen. Not surprised by him picking J.D. Vance. He picked somebody who can go out there and do a lot of the marketing and be the pit bull for the president, where the president himself doesn't have to do it. And I say a pit bull, that would be the aggressive one who will be going on a lot of Sunday morning news shows. I think one of the worries from Trump was the fact that if he picked a Burgum or he picked a Youngkin, whatever, they weren't going to have the same attack attitude to promote his agenda. For example, I think Trump was trying to not get a Mike Pence, somebody who was so different from him personality-wise that the passion and emotion that he wanted to promote in the things that he believed could not be done by somebody like Pence. And he was afraid that, again, this is just an analysis of this particular pick because of what J.D. Vance brings to the ticket. And he brings a youthful energy and passion that probably some of the others did not have.
Yeah, Pence at the time was also a nod to the evangelicals, and that's something that, if you go back to 2016, that Donald Trump kind of had to go out of his way, did a sit down with the evangelicals, and they had, in fact, Pastor Jeffers of the First Baptist Church here in Dallas, who's been on Fox News quite a bit, had talked about it. In fact, on WBAP, our flagship station, I made a comment about, all right, why Donald Trump at that time over Hillary Clinton. And it was, well, we know that he's not going to go after, our core beliefs, and the left is going to. But then you kind of solidify that with a pick like Pence. And also knowing that there really is, Donald Trump leaves a huge wake, and he carries the ticket. The difference this time is that he gets 4 years. And you're going to have somebody who can, at the end, through the 4 years, and certainly at the end, is going to have the ability, and we'll see if it happens, to rally the party and keep going from 28 and beyond. And again, he's going to have to earn that on his own in his time as VP. And we'll see where it comes together and what the party believes in 28. Look at the difference in when Trump announced in November of 22 that he was running again. There was a very split reaction to that within the party. And the fact that it was really an open primary, and you and I kind of criticize others saying, all right, if you're going to run, well, that's one thing, but you got to know when to get out. You stay in too long, and you're probably going to burn some credibility. I think that happened to a certain extent with Nikki Haley. Is that permanent? I don't know. But there was a very split decision on Donald Trump running again. With lawfare, with the verdict in one of the cases coming down, and certainly with this past weekend, he is the guy. There was no momentum building, I think, for Trump because he came in with momentum that was already there. Then the building of the momentum started with the lawfare that of these cases and people going, are you kidding me? What are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? By the way, somebody mentioned, and I got to go back and find the article who it was, of the number of people, anecdotally, the writer was writing about that weren't even aware that Donald Trump had been shot. You were mentioning people that didn't know JD Vance. Mm-hmm. He said, I got to go back and find the article. Someone wrote to me at 3:30 this morning, that would have been Monday morning. They did what to Trump? You mean they shot him?
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah, I forget where it was. Was it National Review
Might
or somewhere?
National Review, yeah.
Maybe Wall Street Journal, somewhere. But the fact is that there is now greater momentum, and I think also it's building on reality. It's building on a broken border. It's building on all the issues, the inflation and national security, the radical left that has taken over the Democratic Party, that is the Democratic Party now. These are things, we said, look, the reality was really changing things politically for the Democrats even before the fallout from the debate and all of that. And now you have a situation where you have the ability. Don Jr. has been in the former president's ear, his father's ear, about JD Vance for a while now. And say what you will about Donald Trump, but he listens to the advice of his children. They wouldn't be there if they weren't passionate about it. And also, they wouldn't be there if he didn't want them involved and didn't respect their opinions on that. And say what you will about his daughter not being as involved this time, but his sons are very involved. They carry that same passion that he does. And now, you see this coming together. How much of that, I can't prove how much of that, endorsement by Don Jr., but it's actually made it happen. But certainly it carries a lot of weight. You can bet that it does. But then again, you have to consider the future of the party. Burgum, he was 72-ish, I think. But he's, again, with all the talk about, well, should we be electing someone who's older, blah, 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 blah. We actually do have to look at the youth of the party. And the Republican Party, I think, and for those of us that are concerned about it and have been concerned about it for a long time, we want to see younger conservatives, real conservatives out there. That's why Ramaswamy, his ability to talk off the cuff and have debates and conversations has brought him to the top. You mentioned Sarah Huckabee Sanders. My gosh, in her role during the first term of Donald Trump, This is somebody who does not flinch, and I think she's going to be the future in whatever role for the Republican Party. And I do, again, I'm saying this from a very open standpoint. I don't know what the future is of JD Vance and what his role will be, but this is certainly an opportunity to prove himself and take it from surrogate to building a surrogacy ultimately for JD Vance, and that's people out there who are willing to endorse him in a big way and make him the future.
As you said earlier, 2028's a long ways away.
It is. It's so far away.
I think the primary reason that Trump picked him is because there's a variety of reasons. Number one, because he knows they're going to be criticized because the Democrats going to be playing all the audio cuts of JD Vance saying Trump is America's Hitler. Because remember, JD Vance was he went from never Trumper to always Trumper. Mm-hmm. And Trump knows this, and I believe he looks at this as an opportunity. As you saw from the first day, whether it was Amber Rose, the Teamsters president, whatever. I mean, you had a lot of people on there yesterday that are not traditional Republicans at all. Mm-hmm. And that's the entire point, that we're uniting through our policies. There was a big talk on social media from Republicans like, oh, okay, he's going to pick Nikki Haley or Kennedy. We don't need that kind of uniting. And as we said yesterday, I believe that Trump is going to promote the fact, and it seems by picking J.D. Vance, that we're going to promote the fact, and he can promote the president's agenda, J.D. Vance, because he believes in the president, that people change, that Trump has convinced people that he was the right guy. You might not have liked me in the beginning. You might have hated me in the beginning. And J.D. Vance will talk about that. He's talked about it already. Mm-hmm. I didn't like this guy, but I was buying into the lies. You saw Amber Rose last night. She was buying into the lies and told the story about her father. Now, she's not somebody who you would view as the traditional Republican anyway. Right. But the whole point is you're not going to agree with everything in the Republican Party. I still have serious concerns, and we'll see what happens. Now, the thing is, Trump did alleviate my concerns by being, not as pro-tariff as he initially said he was going to be, and protectionist. J.D. Vance comes from that same protectionist demographic of the Republican Party, as does what's his name from Missouri? Josh Hawley. And I'm like, because populist economics is liberal economics. Yes. When you start talking about tariffs, you're simply saying we wish to control we are government, and if we control the economy, we can do it in the right way. Right. Well, Trump did very little of it. I know there were the steel tariffs, whatever, but if you look at overall, they weren't a huge portion of it. But we'll see when that happens. And J.D. Vance isn't going to be president. Trump's going to be president, and we saw what he did last time. And that's a fight to have at another day that the Republican Party will have. There will be a debate on that. Yeah. But right now, you're dealing with the lawfare. Right now, you're dealing with a public that does not trust government, that government isn't doing anything that is making our lives better. They're doing the opposite. Everything seems to be broken all the time. And Trump and somebody like J.D. Vance can come in there, and the confidence that they will speak in and talk about freedom and the Constitution and liberty. Yeah, people are willing to hear it now. And you saw it last night with the Teamsters now saying, okay, we're not going to endorse anybody. They didn't endorse. They're moving over. They're realizing the union leadership. We said, when the hell are they going to realize that if the company isn't making a profit, boom. Right. Now, when I saw, what's his name? I can't think of his name. O'Neill, was it yesterday from the Teamsters that was on? Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, my God, this sounds like a Democrat convention. And look, Trump doesn't believe in all of that. Right. Trump is the one that cut corporate taxes to 21%. Mm-hmm. Now, you had Josh Hawley come out and say, that's the worst thing that Trump ever did. That's the best thing that Trump ever did. Yep. And so that debate's going on between the populists. That debate's going on even between the way that Trump thinks, because he comes from ownership management. And, then you see the Teamsters president, talking about the Chamber of Commerce and, and all the Club for Growth and all these places that want to, basically are anti-union and all this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Trump is probably more Club for Growth than he is, unions dominating industry.
Yeah.
And so,
true story.
But that debate is to be had at a different time. The big umbrella right now is lawfare, Banana Republic.
Right.
The institutions are failing us. The FBI's failing us. Secret Service is failing us all the way. And you want somebody who can be out there and speak for the president. And I think that's why JD Vance is there.
Yep. And he's going to have to prove his own worth on his own. And he's got 4 years to do it.
But he's got a wonderful story.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
Sure.
By the way, I wasn't. I was joking before when I said, "Oh, he will bring the Appalachia Ivy League," because that's where he came from.
Right.
Ivy League, and because of his beard, hipster demographic to the Republican Party.
Yeah.
I'm joking on that, but he does bring a unique perspective and a unique story. 866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I also think that Trump realizes the mistakes and how naive he was during the first term. You and I have talked about this before, that he even admits that I wasn't a politician. And I think he wants people that can promote what he believes and actively are willing to promote, that aren't going to fight him inside the White House.
Right.
And I think also having him as vice president and a senator, whatever the president's agenda is, he's already familiar with talking with senators and members of Congress.
Yep.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. How are you today? Thank you for being here. When you look at the pick of JD Vance, I understand people saying, well, he should have picked Youngkin because if he picked Youngkin, that would put Virginia over the top. And that would guarantee the win. I don't think Trump is thinking about the win. I think he believes he probably will have the win if he just keeps on the path that he's going on right now. I did see yesterday, and you saw this mostly from the mainstream media, if Trump's trying to unite, he's not doing it by picking JD Vance. Well, he's not trying to unite by the person that he picks. He's trying to unite by the issues. That's where I believe he is going. I hope he's going there because that's how you convince the American public. You convince the American public by saying, you and I agree on the issues.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and I saw this immediately after J.D. Vance was picked. There we go. Nationalism, nationalism, nationalism. I think that's going to sort of work on independence. Like, remember socialism? Well, socialism, remember they would ask liberals, what do you think of I don't mind socialism because you're social with each other. I mean, you're very social, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
That goes back to like Obama in 2008 when people didn't know. Then socialism became the N-word. Remember that?
Right, yeah.
But nationalism, it's like, well, it sounds good, nationalism. So you care about the nation. You care about the people. Because that's actually what nationalism is about. Mm-hmm. You put the people of the United States first. The left's coming out saying, that's wrong. Maybe that worked in 2020. That
Yeah.
doesn't work
Yeah.
after 4 years of inflation
Yeah.
and migrants destroying the budgets of major liberal cities.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, doesn't work. It doesn't work against them. We care about Americans first. Well, if that message was ever going to resonate, it's going to resonate in 2024.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
And so to pick, JD Vance for that, I'm like, wow. And then you're going to hear, and I saw some of it, not a lot, but you're going to hear it. Well, you pick JD Vance, and he's an isolationist. Because Trump is. Trump's not an isolationist. What you're getting from the Republican Party is not nationalism and isolation. Well, you are getting nationalism, but it all depends what your viewpoint of nationalism is. Nationalism to us and to Trump and to J.D. Vance is making sure we take care of Americans first because they're the damn people that hire you.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're trying to say, the left, is that nationalism is xenophobia.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not the case. And you're not going to convince Americans of that. Just like Trump, he's not an isolationist. He showed that with Soleimani. He just wants to do things differently. I don't want to get U.S. soldiers killed if I don't have to. Well, how do you do that? Let's kill their leaders. Instead of putting people to war, let's do it. And if we're going to fight, get it over with quickly.
Have a even if you need an exit strategy, and he doesn't even get to that point according to things that he did as commander in chief. But if you do get to a point where it's going to require boots on the ground or something like that, and there requires an exit strategy, that you have one. And that's what the American people, this is what the sentiment of the American people is going to be at wartime. It just is. But now with the technology that we have, compared to even when we went into Afghanistan in October of 2001, it's vastly different as to how we can target the enemy. And Soleimani is a perfect example with both the technology and also isolating who it is, the head of the snake, and taking them out. And keep in mind the pushback that he got from the left and all the memes that came out in the days and weeks following the killing of Soleimani. Well, we shouldn't be. Absolutely, we should be. And I'm glad he did it because it likely saved countless of American lives. I would love to know the intel. I probably will never learn it about what they knew at the time and what Soleimani had in his plans at that moment, because Iran went pretty quiet after that happened. And the fact of the matter is that the enemy is not going to give up. And we need a commander-in-chief that understands that, that isn't looking to lie to the American people as the current commander-in-chief did and has repeatedly. And ultimately, I think the American people want a different approach to national security. And it starts with the border, and we go back to essentially square one with Donald Trump in 2016.
And believe it or not, national security is also the Secret Service protecting a damn president.
Absolutely.
Or a presidential candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't say damn because I'm insulting. It's just the frustration of something like that happening because there is such a disconnect. Because when I saw the first guy that they interviewed within a half hour of the attempted assassination, and he was like, oh, yeah, we saw. I'm like, nah, something's wrong here. There's no way that everybody saw the guy and nobody did anything. They're not that incompetent. Mm-hmm. I was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a complete and utter failure.
Yeah. But that's just an example of how everything fails under this administration. Well, everything fails under liberalism.
We've said it, and we've said it for a long time. We go back to the Obama years and then Lois Lerner and the Tea Party thing, and the fact that it is a culture that is set up under the parties and administration's leadership. They set the tone, they set the culture, and here's where we are. There's no way around that. There has to be a very complete investigation and some very, very clear changes made to the United States Secret Service as to how we're going to protect presidents and former presidents. That's just the way it is. And keep in mind, Democrats were on board and even got to the point of ending Secret Service at some point for former presidents. That's absolutely ludicrous. And it's ludicrous that RFK Jr. didn't have Secret Service detail. It's absolutely stupid, insane. And the fact of the matter is that when we don't care about these things, this is why it goes back to who's voting, what they care about, what the priorities are. It is a constant effort to keep people informed and educated as to every single thing that it takes to run and keep a free society. And I'm okay with that, but we absolutely must be involved at every step of the way at keeping that educational process in line. In the schools, we've gotten so far away from that. I mean, forget about DEI. Public school systems have been DEI for the longest time. They just didn't call it that. And now we're at a point where we have generations graduating from public schools and elite universities who know nothing about how the world works and how a free society runs and what's necessary to maintain a free society. And that has to change. And I think a lot of things do change. I think this past weekend, we should all take as a major wake-up call as to how far this whole thing has gone. This isn't about clicks. This isn't about likes. This is about a free society. There's a reason why millions and millions and millions of people want to come to this country. We need to stop the nonsense. We need to go back to doing what we do as a nation, expanding our wealth, because the rest of the world depends on it. If we don't produce as a nation the way we can produce as a nation, if our economy starts to falter, if we don't have the means and also the people in order to expand an economy, then third world nations starve. And that's a fact.
And so when it comes to things like spending in the economy, we'll deal with that when Trump becomes president, and there will be infighting between Congress and the conservatives in Congress that want to shut the government down because of spending, and I'm sure the White House.
Yeah,
because we live in a society now where Republicans and the Republican electorate are not as concerned. They claim they're concerned about debt and everything else, but the problem is whether it's the Democrats or Republicans, spending is going to have problems because we see it right now. Spending and debt is what's caused the inflation that we see. So it doesn't matter whether a Republican, both Republicans and Democrats will be tied down more in spending because of the inflation that comes along with it.
Yeah.
And when it comes to tariffs or whatever, if you tariff too much, you will see inflation or job cuts.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Yep.
So that will work itself out, but this election is about Trump getting elected, and then you worry about everything else after that because the option is much worse.
Well, and that's something that had been a great concern of ours with the Republican Party, this trying to create viral moments. My father even mentioned this to me in our great conversation on Saturday, right before the news broke, about the attempted assassination. But with the Republican Party, I was greatly concerned, and that goes back to the whole Kevin McCarthy thing and all these things of wanting to create a moment for yourself. Then you find out you're not even in line with the people that you're endorsing. You know, what Matt Gaetz found out that day from a reporter that Trump had put on Truth Social that he didn't support that move.
Right.
That's got to be a kick in the stomach that I can't possibly, politically, that I can't possibly even measure. And you notice Matt Gaetz' tone changed after that. I don't disagree with Matt Gaetz on the reasons behind it. It's the remedy. And I don't need the Republican Party to all get along. I need them to get elected. And when you get elected, you can have your disagreements and you work it out in the hallways, and that's the way it's going to be. No, I hate compromise, but there is no unicorn. So you work on those things together. You don't throw everybody out because you want a name for yourself. That's not going to get you a name. That's going to get you a place in the unemployment line. I don't want any of that anymore. I'm tired of this kind of mentality of, and they're creating a name for themselves on social media. If that's what you want to do, then go sign up for social media and monetize that way and get the hell out of lawmaking.
Get a talk show.
Yep.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Play a little bit of last night from the convention. This is, I guess, actress, girlfriend of many rap stars, Amber Rose.
Yeah.
Yesterday. And there was pushback from some traditional conservatives, social conservatives. Matt Walsh saying Trump just reached mythic status by defying death and surviving an assassination attempt, and the GOP decides that the next best move is to have him sit and listen to a porn star talk about diversity. Brilliant move. Thanks, guys. Here's part of this. Here we go.
I realize Donald Trump and his supporters don't care if you're black, white, gay, or straight. It's all love. And that's when it hit me. These are my people. This is where I belong.
Now, obviously, we know what the first night was about when you had the Teamsters president on, Amber Rose and others. They're trying to expand the reach of the party, saying, here's what we believe. Here are the core beliefs. And by the way, that's not a bad move to sit there and say, look, we're the federal government. We can't take care of everything, but here are the things that we can do.
Yeah.
You know, as a federal government, as a Congress, we can make your life easier, irrespective of your skin color, irrespective of your sexuality. We can make your economic situation better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we did make your economic situation better. The other things we can debate.
Yeah. Right.
We may have disagreements, but we still love you. That's not a bad or immoral message to hold.
No.
Or, I want to make this clear, an unchristian opinion to hold.
Right. No, I think that, you know, it applies to many people on the right. And I think you want to send that message. Look, it's, and this is the part that if you're, you know, conservative and you're concerned about someone like this speaking at the convention, then again, if the mission is to bring people together and look like a more inclusive party, then you're going to have to show examples. That's just the way it's going to be. And do you want that or not? The Republican Party still has a lot of work to be done. The party itself has a lot of work to be done. This is vastly different than where we were in 2016 and where we were in 2020. Because in 2016, you saw members of Congress outperforming Donald Trump in their states, and now it's very different. It's quite the opposite for many of them. And we believe the down ballot effect is going to be pretty strong and that he's going to carry a few points for them in most every state and district. But the fact is that this is a very different election season. I believe this is a different Donald Trump, not just because of the assassination attempt, but I think everything thrown at him over the years.
Let me play one more thing from Amber Rose here. She talked about her father, how her father said, actually go look at Trump and see if he does all these things and he's a racist. And that's the point that she was trying to bring up. Yeah. Everything that, for example, Michael Rappaport said. Yep. I believed all this stuff. It was all a lie. Here's what she said.
I'm no politician and I don't want to be, but I do care about the truth. And the truth is that the media has lied to us about Donald Trump.
There you go. And how many times have we heard this from people who were former liberals and look at it now and say, we were lied to? Look, there's a lot to be said that, well, if you didn't wake up and do your homework back then, that's on you. But there's also a lot to be said that, all right, I didn't do my homework, but I've done it now. And that's what we're seeing. And we're seeing more and more examples of that. I wonder with the rank and file to what extent. I really do.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, yeah, what really matters is who's on the top of the ticket, but it's interesting to watch, the media talk about, JD Vance and nationalism and isolationism, and break that down and say, okay, what does it really mean? Mm-hmm. And the fact is, the whole nationalism, the whole nationalist, the whole nationalist label that they wish to use against Trump and JD Vance isn't going to work.
Yeah,
might have worked at some time, not going to work now. And the whole thing that nationalism is racism, nobody buys in 2024. Might have some people buying it in 2020, some people maybe buying it in 2016, 2017, 2018. Nobody buys it anymore. And a lot of Democrats don't buy it anymore. It's about the fact of having a secure border. Mm-hmm. And the isolationism, that isn't true. That's not where Trump is at. And Trump's the top of the ticket, not J.D. Vance. But I don't think J.D. Vance actually believes that either. What they're against is the endless wars. The problem with Ukraine is not the United States trying to blunt Russia at every move, because the United States needs to do that. It's getting involved in a war where you're not trying to win it.
Yeah.
When the whole thing is, and we know that's the case. The United States, we're going to supply you enough weapons, but not enough for you to win it.
Well,
then what are we
exactly?
Then what are we doing?
And that's what I mentioned earlier. You've got to have an exit strategy, even if you don't have boots on the ground. There's got to be a beginning and an end. You've got to have a mission involved, and you've got to see what your goal to that. Everyone needs to see what your goal to that mission is.
And meanwhile, as I said, I know inside the Beltway they paid attention to it a little bit, but nobody really paying attention to Biden. And
it was weird. It didn't. I mean, it just didn't rise above.
Yeah.
Any of the news surrounding the convention, the continued news about the assassination attempt, and more details coming out, but it didn't really rise to the top. It was there, but it wasn't anything like it would have been a couple of weeks ago.
Here's part of it, Biden getting angry that the press isn't covering him fairly and is covering Trump too positively. Too positively.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here we go.
In your last TV interview, you were asked if you had watched the debate, and your answer was, I don't think so, no. Have you since seen it?
I've seen pieces of it. I've not watched the whole debate.
And the reason I ask, because I guess the question is, are you all on the same page? Are you seeing what they saw, which was moments of, frankly, that appeared to be, you appeared to be confused?
Lester, look, why don't you guys ever talk about the 28 lies he told? Where are you on this? Why didn't the press ever talk about that? 28 times it's confirmed he lied in that debate. I had a bad night. I wasn't feeling well at all. And I had been, without it making it, I screwed up. But
I just asked the question because the idea that you may or may not have seen what some of these other folks have seen, you're not on the same...
I'd have to see. I was there. I'd have to see it. I was there. And by the way, seriously, you won't answer the question, but why didn't the press talk about all the lies he told?
Well,
I haven't heard anything about that.
We have reported many of the issues that came up during that debate.
No, you haven't.
I said it yesterday. There's no way that the problem that they have with him sitting down in an interview is Biden is defiant at every turn. He's going to argue with people that agree with him. He's not happy with anybody. And you can't get away with that. And also, he still sounds like his voice is weak and that he's kind of whispering. That's not a sit-down interview, and I would highly advise against it if I were advising his campaign ever again, at least between now and November 5th. But they keep trying this. Okay, here we go. We're going to try and prove it again. We're going to try and improve it again. Here we go. We're going to take another shot. And they keep hitting the wall. There's no way around the fact that he has a measurable decline, and especially in recent months, everybody sees it. And I think part of the reason that this didn't rise to the top of the news cycle is because the media saw a break and being able to cover something else. JD Vance pick, day one of the GOP convention, the new information on the attempted assassination. And they took that opportunity rather than going after something that they have covered to no end over the last, this Thursday, it'll be 3 weeks. And we've seen it. It doesn't matter. I do believe the Democrats are going to be off of it. Jim Carafano, Heritage Foundation, somebody I've spoken with, I don't know how many times on the air, filling in when I was filling in downtown at WBAP on the morning news, and a very knowledgeable person when it comes to national security items. And he doesn't get too political on his X page, but yesterday, basically, kind of mimicking in spirit what you and I have said and what I've said, and that is, that the Democrats are probably going to just, all right, they're not going to offer anybody up. You just ride this out. You kind of cross your fingers and hope for the best, but ultimately you just let this thing ride out. You don't offer anybody else up. And I think and I replied to him, I've been saying sort of the same thing, that I believe that a number of Democrats are absolutely okay with that, or at least have resigned to the fact that that's going to be the case, and say now that, we just write it out, and then we just kind of politically, we verbally attack Trump for 4 years like we are going to do anyway, and we try again at the midterm in 26 and at the presidential cycle in 28.
I think the only problem with that is the fact of the donors, because if you have a 2-point or 3-point swing here because of the convention, you're going to have, your Bob Costas come out. It was yesterday, I think, yesterday. Yep. And so it was after the assassination attempt. Trump or that Biden's got to go. Biden's got to go. I think you're going to see it rise again because they still have, they have not yet defined, when they're going to have that roll call vote.
Mm-hmm.
That has not yet been decided yet, and I believe it would have been by now. They would have picked the exact date to do that. And as far as I know, I mean, if they did it yesterday, I didn't hear about it, and I didn't see a story on it. I'll go check again.
Mm.
The problem is the donors. The problem is the number, the down ballot, and the fury that's going to happen on the down ballot candidates that are in districts that could go either way. And I
think those are the exceptions to the rule. The ones that are, and we've said this before, I said it last week, they're the ones who are going to be greater concerned because they know for them it could mean the end of their run as well.
But the money drying up means they can't run as many ads.
Oh, yeah.
Which means the Trump ads, I believe, will be quite effective, that they're going to run. Remember, Adelson's going to run, what is it, $90 million was it 50, 60, 70 million dollars worth of ads. The PACs are going to come out strong during the Olympic coverage. So if the donorship, if the donations have dried up 50%, that's a huge number of commercials that they can't run against Trump, and I think that will have an effect. And as the polls keep moving in the other direction, you're going to have the civil war in the Democrat Party. They may not be able to change anything, but there's going to be a civil war if the because you're not going to have donors who a week ago said we're not going to give, and here's a chance we believe that our candidate has for winning, and he can't win, and then 2 weeks later, when it's even worse, say, no, we're going to give you $100 million. That's not going to happen.
Well,
that's a huge problem.
And that's the question. And that's why I included the asterisk of a number of them, or at least resigned to the fact that they can't turn this thing around. Because my question would be with those major donors. And we do know that the reports came out that a couple of major donors said, nope, until you get somebody. But there's the question. Who? It's going to be Kamala. It's not going to be somebody. Because they start another civil war immediately if they leapfrog over Kamala Harris. And then the donors don't want to give to her. And we know this historically because that's why she had to drop out in the first week of December of 2019. She was the first major candidate for the Democrats to drop out because there was no money.
Which is even going to make it worse because right now there's still something you can do. Once he gets the nomination and once you get to late August, you're late August, and that's when the Olympics are starting after that. And these ads are being pounded day in and day out.
Yeah.
And remember, so many of the ads are not going to be, just, fake housewife and the kitchen. Remember the kitchen table commercial?
Yeah.
We're sitting over the kitchen table. It's going to be, this is the problem that Democrats have. It's going to be in their own words.
Well, and the other problem they have is that right now nobody is polling greater than Biden against Trump. So what do you do? Where do you go? And what are the donors looking at? They have to be looking at those internals. They have to be looking at the same thing. And what are you going to say? Well, we're hopeful that those polls can change if someone is actually in place and Biden actually does step down. That's the only thing you could say. We're confident that we can convince people. But once you've gotten to a certain threshold, and that's the question, are we at that with the major donors? Elon Musk, when it comes to Trump, is now pledging $45 million a month. That's a massive amount of money between now and the election to a PAC and super PAC. My gosh. Well, if you've got that kind of money pouring in, and they know on the Democrat side that the donors are going, nope, sorry, we don't see a path to a win. Then I don't know. The only thing you can do is
close to $200 million in the period.
Yes, that's unreal.
I know.
And those are the things that you look at and where the money. How long have we been saying? Watch the money flow. Watch the money flow. Where's the money flow? Where's the money flow? But if the donors have basically sent the signal, we're past the point of no return, what do you do? And if the polls are still showing he's the best you got, what do? You got nothing left. And you're getting to the point of that with that roll call thing where if you don't do it by then, you can't do it.
Well, the fury you're going to see at the DNC, I know there have been protests, but the fury you're going to see at the DNC, if it's hopeless in a month.
Oh, my gosh. That's what I asked the question, was it a couple of weeks ago?
That's where the Civil War is going to and who knows what's going to happen to the Democrats. I'm not talking about the politicians in Congress. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the actual party over the next couple of years if this thing just blows up in their face.
Because it's an implosion one way or the other. And if if those are accurate polls that nobody does as good as he does against Trump, then they lose and it doesn't matter. So you just keep this guy in place, you duct tape it, you super glue it, and you weekend at Bernie's this whole thing until November 5th. Cross your fingers and cover your eyes.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Judge Cannon says, sorry, Jack Smith, your classified documents case done. We'll get to that coming up here in a little bit. Seeing here the Democrat consulted Douglas Schoen. Remember, we read his editorial piece a couple of months ago. He's talking about that Trump or that Biden needs to be more MAGA. Remember that one?
Yeah, right.
He's a new column out. Only an October surprise can swing the presidential election.
I don't know what that would be. I mean, I truly don't.
Trump colluded with the Chinese to
pay the Bidens.
to pay the Bidens. I like that. Right.
Not even to win the election, just to pay the Bidens.
See when you do stuff ad lib?
Yeah.
You finish that statement for me, and I can't do any better than that. What I was going to say can't match what you said.
Well, I just don't. I don't see anything that could do that. It could be something that I'm not thinking of. Clearly, I mean, that's why they call it a surprise. That's the whole meaning of the word. But I just don't. Again, I can't imagine. You basically keep your stuff in order. You keep your message on point. If you're the Republicans, if you're Donald Trump, and if you're JD Vance, and you carry on through November 5th.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Hi, good morning.
Hello.
All right. What a morning it was.
Yeah.
Yesterday, woke up. It's like, oh, okay, another case is done, and this is the classified documents case. Judge Eileen Cannon says the Constitution does not let the Attorney General use internal regulations to appoint a special counsel, nor does any law let the Attorney General appoint an outside attorney, as Jack Smith was for the Mar-a-Lago case, with full power and authority to exercise all investigative and prosecutorial functions of a current U.S. attorney. Mr. Smith argued the special counsels have been used throughout history, and Congress has has agreed with their appointment. Not so fast, she said. Very few historic special attorneys resemble special counsel Smith. She notes Congress in the past also had enacted laws establishing such offices as the 1978 independent counsel status, which expired in 1999. Here's Andrew McCarthy on Fox News yesterday. Just so you know, Andrew McCarthy will not be voting for Trump, just so people know. And here's what he had to say.
Well, I think this is Merrick Garland and Joe Biden derivatively being caught on the axle of their own politics. There was not any reason for there to be a special counsel in this case. The Biden Justice Department investigated Trump for 2 years before Jack Smith was appointed. He was appointed because Garland knew there were going to be cases brought against Trump. He knew that Trump would make the political claim that Biden was using his executive prosecutorial authority against his political enemies. So in order to create the illusion of independence of the prosecution of Trump from the Biden administration, Jack Smith was put in for that purpose. But the problem is, constitutionally speaking, his position is not created by Congress, and he's neither nominated by the president nor confirmed by the Senate. And the roster that David just ran through, most of those special counsels were confirmed U.S. attorneys. Pat Fitzgerald was a United States attorney. John Durham was. David Weiss is. There's gobs of authority for the Attorney General to appoint any confirmed United States attorney to any matter he wants to appoint that U.S. attorney to. But what he can't do is create a position and then fill it from somebody outside the government who hasn't been nominated by the president or confirmed by the Senate.
There you go.
Yeah,
Pretty simple.
Jack Smith was acting for a while, but that doesn't require a nomination or a confirmation process, and that's the difference. A lot of people were trying to make that case, and this will, Merrick Garland has already said they're going to appeal this, but it's over. There's nothing that's going to happen before the election that's going to change. And
well, when appointed, he was not in the government. When appointed, Jack Smith was not in the United States government.
Exactly.
He was not in the
correct.
part of the
he was
Department of
because he was
Justice,
only acting through part of 2017.
Right.
And so you get to a point now that, all right, what's the timeline look like? Well, I don't know. Number one, how fast could you get this to the Supreme Court? I don't know. It could be that they decide to take it up and hear it coming up in October, or
the appeals court would have to hear it first.
Yes, it's got to go through that process. But then even if it went through that and it was expedited, I don't know that the Supreme Court's going to take it up in this session for this October. And if Trump wins, he becomes president in January of next year. And quite frankly, it's over at that point. I don't have any doubt that if Trump wins and he serves another 4 years, the Democrats will come after him after he's no longer in office, and they'll still try and throw these bogus cases at him. I think that was probably is going to be, because at that point, if there is a legacy to be had, they want to destroy the legacy at that point, not his chances of running again, because there won't be a chance of him running again, because he by law will not be able to. But destroying his legacy is something they've wanted to do from the beginning anyway. Destroy his presidency, the legitimacy of his presidency, his candidacy, and everything else that they've tried to throw at him legally.
Here's Jonathan Turley, also part of that discussion yesterday.
Well, this is a seismic decision, because the immunity decision that was issued by the Supreme Court was the second of a 1-2 punch for Jack Smith. Previously, the court had reversed an obstruction charge that impacted Trump as well. And so those two cases sort of ripped the wings off his case. So we were all looking to see how Jack Smith would handle it in D.C. He is a very motivated and favorable judge, Judge Chutkan. She has really been an ideal choice for Jack Smith. So the assumption was that Chutkan would do her level best to keep that case going even after these hits. Few people expected the Florida case to be the one that disassembled first. But what Judge Cannon is saying here is essentially, look, there's this weird anomaly in the Constitution. We have a process of which U.S. attorneys are nominated and they are then confirmed by the Senate. And yet the Attorney General can just go onto any street in D.C. and pick any person and make them a special counsel with greater authority than the U.S. Attorney. And that's what she's trying to get at here, saying, where is the footprint for this in the Constitution? Where is the authority to create Jack Smith within the first 3 articles of the Constitution? So it's a huge win for Trump. Other courts have really dismissed this claim with very little briefing. And so this will create a conflict. There are good arguments on both sides here. But you couldn't have more favorable news for Donald Trump, because I've said it from the beginning. The Florida case was by far the greatest threat to Donald Trump. The New York case, the Manhattan case, in my view, has layers of reversible error. It's going to be in the courts for a while. I think Judge Merchan did a particularly poor job in that case, and I don't even see the viable crime in that case. But putting that aside, Florida was the greatest challenge. There's also an irony here. Jack Smith has always been undone by his appetite. He has always gone for the greatest number of charges, the most aggressive approach. It got him reversed 8-0 before the Supreme Court in his previous major case. This is another example of overreach. If he had simply brought an obstruction charge against Trump, he very well could have had that trial before the election. But he had decided to pile on these classified documents charges. And I can tell you, I've been cleared defense counsel in national security cases. When you have that many classified documents, it's like invading Russia in winter. I mean, it goes very slowly.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, look, I think there was something unique. There were many things unique about this case. I think he's right about the point about Jack Smith's appetite. But that appetite is not unique to Jack Smith. We've seen it across the board with all those that have played the lawfare game against Donald Trump. But there is one thing that Turley has mentioned a number of times that we have mentioned from the beginning. If there were any of the cases that were a threat at all to Donald Trump, that one would be the closest. There was still a lot to prove as to what was done with the documents and the back and forth. But I think once Biden's situation with his documents, keep in mind, he wasn't president when he took those documents. And they didn't pursue anything there. All bets were off on the Jack Smith case and the legitimacy. But legally, you still have a reason to be worried. You still have a reason to be concerned, and that's the problem. And they knew this, and Jack Smith knew this. Judge Cannon, this is a 93-page opinion. And the breakdown of it is very clear. My question would be, did Merrick Garland just go basically choose Jack Smith based on the appetite of Jack Smith?
No, that's a great question, because the whole thing you would be looking at saying, all right, what would they use against me?
I wouldn't want my case to fail at all.
Right.
Let's build it solid from the get-go, including the process itself.
Right. When the process is flawed, you're opening yourself up to dismissal.
Did no one else want it? Was it one of those? Because remember, it took a couple days.
Well,
but
I don't believe you get a choice. If the attorney general goes to a U.S. attorney and says, you're taking this case, you take the case. He's your boss.
Yeah, that's true. But why not a sitting U.S. attorney?
I don't know.
because
get into the head of Garland? I don't know.
Well,
but
because Garland's the one that walked up. It took a few days for him to do the press conference, remember? And then he came out and boasted, "This was me. I did this." The whole raid on Mar-a-Lago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we know it was you. We get that. We got that. In fact, your signature was all over it, Mr. Garland. But why would you then make such a huge misstep? My question, because it goes back to some of the questions we had from the beginning. Did Merrick Garland think this wasn't going to go this far? How do you not? You assign a special prosecutor, you got to go the full measure. But was there something in his mind that thought that, I don't know, that Trump's people would come out and make a deal or something, or offer something to make a deal on it? Or I don't know. I can't tell you, and I'm just throwing questions, spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks here, because I can't tell you why you don't choose a sitting U.S. attorney.
Don't know.
That to me is weird.
Unless his way out of it is he knew that this was a touchy thing, that going after a president for, because remember, the whole Biden thing was completely different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Biden wasn't president.
Yeah, that's what I just said. Yeah.
Right. He wasn't president, so he had no reason to have any of these classified materials in his personal possession at all.
Right.
And so that's a different case than Trump, who was president. And as we said many times before, the problem with this thing is the proper way you should have done it is, if there's a debate going on about what is or what is not classified, the Attorney General should have said, we're going to the court.
Yeah, sure.
The court is the body that should have made the decision, not the Department of Justice.
Yeah.
Because at that point, that's why in fact, that's the whole point. You want to use the court to enforce everything, because then you've got two branches of government, the Department of Justice under the current executive branch and the courts. But the court is making that decision, not the opposition to you in the last election.
Yeah.
And that's why you go to the court to do it, not going to the court, because the court could have enforced it. The court could have said, no, you need to hand over these things right now. And if you don't, there will be a search warrant at your house.
Mm-hmm.
You have to this date to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been the proper way to do it. But as soon as you got involved with the Department of Justice and the raid, they did that for the optics of it, because you didn't need to have the optics.
Nope.
You go to a judge.
Right. But they wanted it to play out like a movie.
Here's the evidence that you have.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I want Trump and his lawyers in court today.
Yep.
That's how you do it.
Yep.
And so from the beginning, using, the armed law enforcement to go into Mar-a-Lago was for show.
Yeah.
And everybody knows it.
Yep.
Because you didn't need to approach it that way. You could have gone to the federal courts.
Right.
Have the federal courts say, by this day, you need to do this, and do it now. Very easy. We're not. And so that was the comedy of errors continues, because that initial thing was wrong, because you never had to get to the point, and then going to charge him then and using Jack Smith was also flawed.
Mm-hmm.
It's a comedy of errors.
Or a comedy of incompetence.
Because if your only goal was to enforce the law, I'm an attorney general, and it's very sensitive because you ran and it was a very contested election. So I'm an attorney general. I have to, even though that's my boss, this is so highly political. We need to do this in the right way, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. We believe he has this. Let's go to the court.
Right.
And you go to the courts early on.
Yep.
He's not cooperating or whatever your argument was going to be, because he's claiming and both make their case in court.
Yep.
And then the court decides, and then it's not the Biden Justice Department against Trump, it's the courts against Trump, and that's what you would have wanted if you're a legit, if you're an attorney general, attorney general doing their legitimate job.
Yep. Make sure your case is solid from day one.
Exactly. 866-98 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. In order to manage speed, you need to understand the 4 factors involved in stopping a vehicle. Perception distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time you see a hazard until your brain recognizes it. The perception time for an alert driver is approximately 3/4 of a second. Reaction distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time your brain tells your foot to move from the accelerator until your foot hits the brake pedal. The average driver has a reaction time of 3/4 of a second. Brake lag distance also needs to be taken into account. When operating a vehicle with air brakes, it takes about half a second for the mechanical operation to take place. Finally, braking distance is the distance it takes a vehicle to stop once the brakes are applied. Braking distance is affected by the weight, length, and speed of the vehicle, as well as road condition. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara.
What happened?
Just ordered some stuff during the break there. I went, oh, it's Amazon Prime Day.
Oh, okay.
A couple of years ago, I bought a lawnmower.
Yeah?
Because it was only like $170. I still use it today.
Yeah.
It's like 5-6 years ago. And I figured the battery itself is like $60.
Right.
So the lawnmower was like 110.
Yeah.
And so I was looking, it's like, what if they got any, big deals like that? But I got some super coffee was on sale.
All right.
Like 31% off.
Well, that's something for work then.
So I loaded up. Well, yeah, because I have a super coffee. Yeah. I was doing it. I want to make sure I was not shopping on company time.
No.
For personal things.
Technically, you were saving the company money by drinking your own energy drink rather than the coffee they pay for and provide.
Exactly. That was my main concern.
You're welcome. I just saved you.
Was for the company.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. That was the only concern.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
The only concern, not part of the concern.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bringing on the chaos. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. A couple of things here. First off, President Joe Biden is on the brink of failing to win a key labor endorsement as leaders of the $1.3 million member Teamsters Union considers backing no candidate at all in the U.S. presidential race. According to 2 people familiar with the matter, the internal brotherhood of the Teamsters decision has not been finalized and is expected to be made in the coming weeks. Not backing Biden, who the union endorsed in 2020, would compound political damage to the Democratic president's presidential bid. The Teamsters endorsement for Republican candidate Donald Trump appears unlikely, sources say, but deep internal divisions mean the union may not back any candidate at all. That would mark the first time since 1996. Since the halting performance in a presidential debate on June 27th, Biden has already seen a number of lawmakers and donors ask him to stand aside, worried about his ability to get reelected and to serve another 4-year term. Some allies say they believe Saturday's Trump assassination attempt could quiet those calls, but other Democrats doubt that. Biden's team once viewed the Teamsters endorsement as all but inevitable and still counts a number of senior leaders there as supporters, but months of deteriorating relations and rising concerns about Biden's political endurance have soured sentiment among some of the leaders of the union. Now, Teamsters President Sean O'Brien spoke last night at the RNC. He was invited and spoke, and it was really amazing because it was like, what the hell is this? I mean, it was as populist union as you could get.
Right.
Basically said Donald Trump is tough, but basically was able to give his little speech. And I know if you look at it from head on, just as a generality, what the hell is he speaking for?
Right. Mm.
But the point is, you're trying to gain influence. Monday means nothing. Monday, I've covered enough of these. Monday means nothing. The public isn't paying attention.
It's a door opener.
Right. It's a door opener. You can come and say your speech. Come and say it. Consider us. And if there's no endorsement, what you've got right now going on in the Teamsters is a civil war inside their management because so many of the Teamsters members support Trump.
Well, that's the problem that they're having, and you and I have been talking about over the years. How do you, consolidate all of that, and how do you, as the head of the Teamsters, they've talked about it openly now that many of their members are going to support the other guy, which was Trump, and not support Biden. Well, that's something where you have to step back and say, okay, our survival requires on the will of our members. And we're going to have to, beyond the success in the businesses that we work with, we're going to have the support of our members. And if more and more we're taking their fees, their dues, and giving it to the party they don't support, we're going to be in trouble. That's one indication. The populism thing, look, populism is alive within the Trump campaign, within the Republican Party. So it's not completely out of place. We'll see how far it goes, what effect it really has, and what policies come about as a result of it. But is it also part of door opening night? Hey, we're going to open the door and show this big, wide umbrella, vast array of individuals now that can at least feel comfortable on stage at our get-together.
You're not going to get rid of unions if that's your goal. No. You're not going to get rid of unions in the United States.
Nope.
In fact, as we see, private sector unions continue to go down and down and down and down. Mm-hmm. What's growing is the public sector unions, which even when you look back at who was viewed as a great labor leader, for example, George Meany. If you look at FDR, a very pro-union president, all against unions in the public sector. Mm-hmm. Why? Unions were established to get a share of the profits of corporations. Governments don't make profits. Mm-hmm. And so both were vehemently against it. So where unions are going in this country is to suck off the taxpayer. Mm-hmm. That's where unions are going, whether you like it or not, whether you're willing to admit it or not. That's where they're going. That's what the numbers show.
Yeah.
It's not my wish. It's not your wish. Well, maybe somebody's wish, but the fact is that's just the reality of it. And as I have said for the longest time, and this was as a former member of the United Steelworkers and the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, that unions, some union leaders, the membership has figured it out. If the company's not there, There is no union.
Yep.
And when you have, the biggest con and the biggest betrayal, I believe, of union leadership is EVs.
Yeah.
They went to bed, and I will say this also, the automobile companies did the same thing. But the union leaders should have been screaming about that.
Because their future relies on those on a viable product.
And the union leaders could have made a capitalist argument.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, and they didn't make it. What they said was, okay, we're going to go along with the company to get the subsidies. And then when the company got the subsidies, what the union said was, well, if you're getting the subsidies in order to produce a product that isn't going to make any money, some of that taxpayer money should go to the union members.
Yeah.
And the company's like, well, actually, some of the money is because you're getting the money from, you're getting paid from part of the subsidies that we make. No, but we need more.
Yeah.
That's not an argument for viability.
No.
The argument for viability of a union would be the capitalist argument, which is we reject this EV. We don't want, because the money's going to disappear. You can't make money on EVs.
No. Nope.
And since you can't make money on EVs, we don't want to be a part of it. We want to be a part of an industry where the industry will have a successful future, which means making cars and trucks that are sold for profits. And we're getting involved here with producing products that can't make a profit even with the government subsidies. And we reject that. We want the company involved in money-making endeavors. They didn't do that.
Nope.
And then they went along with the lie of many of the automobile manufacturers who felt coerced. By the way, I want to make this clear. They felt coerced, by government. You either do this or we'll regulate the daylights out of you. But then they should have had the guts to go public and say, this isn't right.
Yeah.
You're forcing us to produce a product that we can't make a profit on, and you're not covering the full cost of it.
Right.
And you're regulating us where if we don't make the EVs, and I told you I was talking to that one automobile dealer owner, owns multiple dealerships. Fascinating woman who I met. Fascinating woman on one of my airplane flights here in the last couple of months. Just fascinating conversation. She said, come to 2026, they're going to start fining dealerships. This is in one state. They'll start fining you like tens of thousands of dollars if you don't meet the quota to sell what the consumer doesn't want.
Right.
And she told me she believes that in the state she's in, I don't want to give away who she is because I didn't get, I told her it was off the record, which means I can tell the story, but I'm not going to tell you where and who she is. But I asked her, what about these politicians? Do they know this is bogus? She said, yeah, they know it.
Of course they do.
She goes, I talked to one state legislator that told me, no, they're going to have to reverse all of this because they can't do it.
There's no way to force people to buy it.
Right.
So you can't force anybody to sell it.
And
there's just no way around that. And if it takes a massive court case, then that's the way it will go down.
But to see the way that, and we've said this over the long term, when Biden got into office and the first thing he did was kill tens of thousands of great union jobs with the Keystone Pipeline for no reason.
Yep.
None. Because even if he was doing it for the so-called climate change problem, as even his climate change czar, John Kerry, said, well, no, actually, if you cared about climate change, you would do the opposite. You would allow the Keystone Pipeline to continue, and you wouldn't be shipping this oil through trains and trucks. So he did it for no reason at all, killed tens of thousands of union jobs, still getting the union endorsements.
Yeah.
The betrayal of the union leadership to their members in this country, beyond epic.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what the hell?
No,
And
I mean, they want to kill the business model. They want to kill the manufacturing model. And, of course, automobile manufacturing would be right at the top. How is it not? So those are the things that we have watched happen. It was inevitable we could see it. And now you're going to see, but now I guess the question is, reality has served up so many things for the rank and file on the left. How many people are changing their votes, or is it only going to be a case of voter apathy? And again, only time's going to tell. We'll only learn that after the election.
O'Brien also praised Trump's running mate, JD Vance, as one of the several lawmakers that truly care about working people. We are not beholden to anyone or any party. Well, that's a new proclamation. The Teamsters are not interested if you have a D, R, or an I next to your name. We want to know one thing. What are you doing to help American workers?
That is new.
O'Brien is not yet scheduled to speak at the Democratic convention in August. The Teamsters leader had reached out simultaneously to the Democratic and Republican national committees to speak at their conventions, but only heard back from Republicans. So even though if you heard his speech last night, it was not a typical speech at all that you would hear from a Republican. But as you said, I thought you had the greatest point. It wasn't an endorsement of the union's position. It was opening the door to say, we can talk.
Hey, look, everybody we're okay with having these individuals on stage. It's okay. And look, because if it really is about this whole, unity thing, which you and I kind of scoff at that word, but you do have to be, I think, more open and have an actual approach about, look, we're willing to have a conversation. If there is any dissent on the left, you are shut down and they want to come after you. On our side, we'll give you a place on stage. We'll hear you. We'll hear you out.
We'll hear you.
And if that's, and we may come to an agreement. We may see eye to eye on things. We won't see eye to eye on certain things.
Well, here's where I can, as a Republican, look, just say what we said right there. The Democrats are telling you they support you, but they're killing the companies where unions have a stronghold.
Yeah. Right.
So even if I'm not pro-union, or I'm neutral on unions, whatever you as a Republican wish to say.
Right. Yeah.
I still am for what we're both for, which is companies making money, because you don't exist if companies don't make money. But understand and have a serious conversation. You've been supporting, you haven't been working in the best interest of your workers, because you've been supporting the EV movement and promoting it when you know it's not going to work, because you can't continue to produce a product that doesn't make a profit. And you were lied to by the Democrats and by Biden, who said that building EVs would create more jobs when it would produce fewer jobs.
Right.
866-90-RED-I.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Look, I have no problem with the Republicans, and I know some Republicans were worried when Trump said, this speech is going to be about uniting. As long as you unite through the issues that you stand for. As long as you say,
absolutely
look,
right.
I know some people are liberal out there on these issues, but we agree on 70% of these things, and we know you agree with it. Join us. There's no problem with that.
Well, and I don't want it to be the style of bipartisanship kind of style that we've seen in the past from people like the late John McCain when he was a senator, reaching across the aisle in the opposite direction. No, we want it to be based on the values of the party, but you want to show that, look, these are the things that most Americans agree on, and you're welcome here.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.